Zion, page 518. Okay. So it says like this. V'chol hanoshim, 7 lines from the bottom. Chol hanoshim asher nosa liba nosana b'chochma. On page 518. All the women whose hearts so inclined them, tavu eseizim. They wove the goat skins. Now Rashi, if you look on the left side, Rashi is 6 lines on the top. Tavu eseizim hi haisa umanus yisera, 6 lines from the top. This was a special skill. Sheme al gabe haizim hayotavanosim. They actually did it on the back of the live goats. They wove the goat. How does he translate? They spun the women whose hearts. They spun the goat hair. They're making goat hair into some sort of material for the Mishkan. They did it on the goats themselves. Wow, they did it on the goats. So, the first, why was that necessary? Why were you doing it on the goats? So there are 2 approaches here. Interestingly enough, there are 2 approaches. One approach is that they when something is shorn off the living source, it's never as fresh. So they wanted it to be as fresh as possible. So if you do it on the goat itself, I guess that makes it fresh. That's one of the approaches. The other is more of a halachic angle, that a woman who is a nida, some of those women were probably nidas, and a nida, once the material is off the animal, then the thing they're making could become tameh. Whereas while it's on the animal, it's not susceptible to tumah. So again, you have a halachic. There's that halachic angle in Torah, where there's really a halachic reason. So that's what the Mefarshim say. Then is the main point I want to get to. V'hanesiim heviu es avnei hashoham. The Nesiim brought the shoham stones. Ve'es avnei hamiluim, the stones that fill the chest plate. La ephod v'la choshet. Now, if you'll notice, the word Nesiim, which means the heads of the tribes, the word Nesiim is missing a yud. It's normally spelled with a yud. There's no yud in the word Nesiim over here. Now take a look at Rashi. Amar Rabbi Nosson. It's the left column of Rashi, 5 lines from the bottom. Amar Rabbi Nosson. Ma ro Nesiim lisnadev b'chanukas hamizbeach batchila. Why did the Nesiim, and then it comes later on to the inauguration, they donated first? Uvebeleches HaMishkan, yet here, where it comes to building the Mishkan, lo hisnadu d'tchila. They did not donate first. Ela kach amru Nesiim. This is what the Nesiim, this was their calculation. Yisnadvu tzibur mashen misnadvim. Let the community will donate whatever they donate. Umashe mechasrin, whatever they're missing, anu mashlimin, we'll fill it in. Kevan shishlimu tzibur es hakol, when the tzibur finished donating, and the community did provide everything. Shenemar, we'll see later on. It says v'amalacha hayasadayim. There was enough. They provided enough. So the Nesiim, they said, well, whatever they're lacking, we'll fill in. But it turned out nothing was lacking. Amru Nesiim aleinu lasos. What are we going to do? Heviu es avnei hashoam. So they brought the gemstones. L'chach hisnadvu b'chanukas hamizbeach tchila. Therefore, in the Chanukas HaMizbeach, they donated first, because here they missed the boat. So they figured, we'll fill in whatever everybody doesn't bring. But they brought everything. So they said, okay, we better we'll bring the gemstones. Now watch this. Ulefisha nisatzlu mitchila, because they were lazy at the outset, nechsira os mishmam. The letter was missing from their name. Vehan Nesiim ksiv. It says Nesiim instead of putting in a yud. So there's several ideas here. Several ideas. This is what I want to get to today. First of all, the idea of withholding a letter. I mean, okay, so the letter is withheld. So what? What's the idea of withholding, especially a yud? Especially the letter yud. So yud, every number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 represents independence. You're a separate entity. You're a 1, 2, 3, 4. Where is there unity when you get to the number 10? Where do we see unity in the number 10? So first of all, you have the 10 plagues in Egypt, which is to remind us of the unity, what we call the achdus, the singularity of God. The 10 plagues is to remind us that God is one. It's called Hashem Echad. Number 1. You have the 10 commandments. They unite to remind us that God is one. It's a unite. The 10 unite. Ironically, the 10 unites to be a reminder of that it's all one. A minyan. You have 10 people, 10 Jews davening. 9 Jews davening is 9 Jews davening. 10 Jews davening is one unit. It's called a minyan. It's one unit. Where now you can say Kaddish and Kedusha and everything else. The Nesiim wanted to be individuals. They wanted to be different than everybody else. They'll bring and then we'll do the rest. That breaks the unity. So the letter of unity is therefore missing from their names. The letter Yud, which is unity, is therefore missing simply because they wanted disunity, not in a malicious way, but just that was a fact. They'll do their thing, the community, and we'll do our thing. And therefore, the Yud is missing. Now, Rashi says, question, go ahead.
Just when it's talking about the Nesiim, like, who would that, like, was that
the heads of the tribes? The heads of the tribes.
The heads of each of the tribes.
Yeah.
And they were lazy.
We'll see.
My question is about the tens. Does this also correlate with the 10 generations between Adam and Noah and the 10 generations between Noah and Abraham?
Interesting question. I'd have to think about how it works. The answer is yes, because if the 10 is there, then it's no accident. Then the question is what that's referring to, what that's uniting. It could be because the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos then says that Noah received reward for all of them, for the ones who messed up. So there's that unity goes all into Noah. And then you have by Avram Avinu also, he received the reward of all of them. So all that, those 10 generations, it could be that's the answer to the question is definitely yes, because that's what the number 10 means. The question is figuring it out how it fits in.
How many generations were we in Egypt for?
4 generations in Egypt. Now, okay, so Rashi, now be careful over here, because Rashi says, Lefisha nitz'atzlu. Rashi says, because, see, we don't have that verb in English. They were, it doesn't say they were atzlonim, which means they were lazy. It doesn't say they were lazy. It says they did not demonstrate, they demonstrated laziness here, as opposed to saying they are inherently lazy. Nitz'atzlu, they demonstrated laziness. But it wasn't laziness, was it? It wasn't. Why is it called laziness? Why does Rashi say, Rashi is quoting the Medrash, why does it say Lefisha Nitz'atzlu? Because they demonstrated laziness. It wasn't laziness, they had a plan. They worked things out. Then afterwards, oh boy, we almost missed the boat over here. Better bring the diamonds. So why is it called laziness?
Because they didn't do it right away.
Yeah. I once read a line that the symptoms of fatigue and laziness are remarkably similar. I'm fatigued right now. I haven't got energy and I can't do it. Yeah, you're fatigued or you're lazy. Now, where is that line? The test is, and that's what the Torah is really teaching you. What's really underlying this? What's really underlying it? Are you sure that the thing that's causing you delay is what's causing you the delay, or maybe the delay is because of laziness? Where is that line? And it's very difficult for us to check that. It's a big Yetzer Hara. I can't right now. Right now I'm too tired. You're too tired. You're too lazy. Where's that line? It's not so simple. And that's usually a machlokas between husbands and wives. I'm fatigued. Oh yeah. Don't look, especially when you have to go visit her relatives. I haven't got energy. Yeah. Oh yeah. Or you're lazy. So there's a famous story about there was somebody who was coming to visit a town. A big Rav was coming to visit a town, And the head of the town, the Rav of the town, normally when a big visiting rabbi came, you went to the train station to greet him. Excuse me one second. Normally, you went to the train station to greet him. The rabbi of the town, I forgot who the rabbanim were, but the rabbi of the town felt that this rabbi who's coming to visit has certain inappropriate approaches in Judaism, and he did not want to demonstrate that honor because he didn't want the people to follow this rabbi. He felt that if he goes to the train station and he greets them at the train station, so the people that'll be a sign as if he's giving approval of this rabbi, and he felt that it was dangerous, that the people they had certain distorted views, and they want.
The last 200 years?
Whatever, whatever. Okay. So he decided he's not going to go to the train station to greet him. Then he had a thought. He said, you know what? Is that really my motivation? Or I just, it's cold, it's frosty outside. I just don't feel like going to the train station. I'm using it as an excuse. So what did he do? He did the only thing possible. He went to the train station. And at the train station, he made the decision. At the train station, he made the decision. He said, no, I really shouldn't be greeting him. Then he went home. That's the only way to test it. That's why I say sometimes in the morning, we find this in the morning. You wake up, let's face the fact, we could all sleep longer in the morning. Everybody wants to sleep longer. Sometimes you wake up, you think, boy, I'm just exhausted. I can't really get up now. The first thing to do is get horizontal. Sorry. Get vertical, horizontal, thank you, yes, horizontal is, no encouragement needed there. Nobody's too lazy to get horizontal. Somehow there we have all the energy in the world. Yeah, first thing is get vertical. Sit up in bed, maybe get up, go to the bathroom, wash your hands out, then make the decision about whether or not you want more sleep. But if you make the decision horizontal, it's, it's like being paro. Your free choice is taken away at that point. There is no free choice when you're horizontal. You're horizontal, you're going to stay in bed. Listen, this morning it happened to me because I had that medication. I had a very, very strong reaction. I couldn't sleep at night from the medication I took yesterday. I took this narcotic, and this it's a very, very strong medication. It's called, you want to know, it's called Tramedex. It's in the morphine family, right? Yeah. I always love family, and it's like in the codeine morphine line, and it's the only medication I can take because I'm allergic to all the other pain relievers. So I took this medication. I always worry about it because I know that there's so I did not sleep a lot last night. I was up, I slept, I got up. At 7 o'clock in the morning, I was exhausted. I was knocked. I finally fell back asleep. At 5:30, at 7 o'clock, I was exhausted. So what I did was I decided, look, if I need to sleep, I'm going to sleep. But first, let's see what happens. So I got myself up at 7 o'clock, and then I stayed up. I got up. I learned a little bit. I was able to function a little bit. And then at about 8:30, I said to myself, I can't, or 8 o'clock, I said, okay, I got to get some more sleep. I can't. And I see that I'm falling off my feet. I can't even daven right now. And I went back to sleep for an hour. Then I davened by myself later. But sometimes you have to check, what is the real motivation here? What is the real motivation? And that story with going to the train is a very powerful story. They first go and do it. Make the decision over there. Why make the decision at home? Because then you know for sure that any of the internal biases are set aside. That's the second idea. The third idea is that Reb Moshe Feinstein says that what did they end up bringing? They ended up bringing diamonds. They ended up bringing gems, gemstones. And these are very expensive items, the most expensive items of all. Yet, what do we see as preferable? Alacrity, what's in Hebrew it's called zrizus. Zrizus in serving Hashem is preferable to expense. And better to be energized, be energetic, do it. That's a better indication of truly serving God than simply writing out a big check. And therefore, they're also taking a task for that. Now, one of them, unfortunately, says, could you imagine the disappointment when you were planning on participating in building the Mishkan, and all of a sudden at the last minute you're finding out, oh, by the way, we don't need anything from you. Can you imagine? Yeah, for us, it's like, all right, so I didn't build the Mishkan. Yeah. Hey, have you ever missed a flight? You ever gotten to the airport and missed a flight? How do you feel at that moment? You missed your flight. You came a little too late. You missed your flight, which is probably one of life's more aggravating experiences. I remember now I don't remember which, I was a little kid. I might have been a teenager. One of the Olympics, where was the Olympics? I don't remember. But there were two American runners. They could have been in the relay runner race. They were sprinters, American sprinters. And when they got to, this might have been in Mexico in '68, I'm not sure. When they got there, the coach misread the schedule for the heats. So these guys did not show up at their heats, and therefore they were disqualified from racing in the Olympics. And I remember seeing a picture, they had a picture of the coach breaking the news to them, to these two guys, that they are not going to be running in the Olympics. And they're like, what? And could you imagine? Now imagine that disappointment. You've spent your entire life training and building, trying to get to this point, and all of a sudden the last one, now you're told, oh, by the way, I misread the schedule. We missed our heats. You're disqualified. Imagine the disappointment. That's the disappointment of the Nisim when they find out that they're too late to donate to the Mishkan. That's the disappointment. By the way, if you're ever in the Olympics, don't read the schedule. Go double check it. He probably, he gave a look at the schedule and said, oh, there it is, and then ran off to go to the bar. Well, no. If you ever make it to the Olympics, I had a guy here, by the way, told me there was a girl he knew at the university, I think University of Florida, who made the United States Olympic swim team. Between the ages of 9 and 17, there were 4 days that she wasn't in a pool. Think about that. That's what it takes. That's what it takes. All right, single-minded devotion. That's what it takes. So the Nisim were, what do you call it? The Nisim are very disappointed to find out everything has been donated to the Mishkan and you're not included. And then at the last minute, they go and they grab the gems and they donate the gems. Now, where did they get the gems from? And why didn't anybody else donate the gems? Where did these gemstones come from? So you know what the Medrash said? And why didn't anybody else donate gems? The Medrash says they came down in the clouds with the manna. They fell with the manna. So when they fell with the manna, the Nisim received it, nobody else did. That was a sign, this is what you're supposed to donate. That's where they got the gemstones from. That's where they're able to donate it. And therefore, the rule in life is don't miss the boat. Now, take a look on the next page, top of page 520. Vayomer Moshe el b'nei Yisrael, Re'u, look, Kara Hashem b'shem. Hashem is called by name, Betzalel ben Uri ben Chur lemata Yehuda. Behold, Hashem has designated by name Betzalel, the son of Uri, the son of Chur, from the tribe of Yehuda. Now, it's a very strange this idea that Moshe says to the Bnei. So Re'u, look. You don't find this by the commands. It doesn't say Re'u, look. You're not allowed to eat pork. Re'u, look. You got to put on tefillin. You never see Re'u, look. What does look mean over here? Look. How does the arts go? See, Hashem is proclaimed by name Betzalel ben Uri ben Chur. So there are Mefarshim that say the name itself, Betzalel, means in the shadow of God. He's in the shadow of God. That means he's got divine inspiration to be able to do the work in the Mishkan. But what is Re'u? What does Re'u mean? Look, he called Betzalel. So I saw one of the Mefarshim says that he's telling the Jewish people, look, Betzalel's got the ability. If he's got the ability, he's meant to be using it. He was the one chosen for the job. Simply, you see that he's got the intuition or the innate understanding of how to go about building this Mishkan. And the lesson here is, if you are given a talent by God, you're meant to use that talent. God does not hand out, if God gave a person an ability in serving God. Let's be careful here. Sometimes he may give a person an ability which they have to restrain. So, for example, if God gave a person an ability, if God gave a woman an ability, we use this example once where I gave a woman a great voice, and she would love to sing. Well, she's going to have to, there's a limit on where she could perform, because she could only perform in front of women. She can't sing on Broadway in front of men. So sometimes in life that becomes a test. If God gave a man an ability to, let's say, I had a friend who was a broadcaster for, he had a background in broadcasting. He was Chassidish. Baal Tshuva, became Chassidish, and he was a broadcaster. He walked in off the street in Israel's, Kol Yisrael, which is the Israeli on the radio. There was the main English news station. He walked in cold off the street, asked for a tryout, an audition. He was better than anybody they had, and he became the main broadcaster for the English news in Israel. He told me that he had a problem, because broadcasting the news, when you broadcast the news, you're talking about people. And a lot of stuff you're talking about Israeli politics, much of which, like 100%, is not complimentary. So now how does this work with the laws of Lashon Hara? That you're going to now be speaking Lashon Hara on the radio about, with the thousands of people are going to hear you saying negative things. Well, that's a good question, isn't it? So he told me at the time that, and by the way, if you can't do it, you can't do it. Then you have to give it up if it's prohibited according to halacha. It's a talent that you have, and you won't be able to use that talent. So he told me that he actually asked Rabbi Scheinberg Zatzal, was one of the poskim, one of the Gedolei Ador, and he asked Rav Scheinberg about what the Rav Scheinberg said to him, that since, as the broadcaster, they script what the news is that he's going to have to report. But the broadcaster does have a certain amount of say in how he says it. Since in that situation it's going to be said anyway, and he actually has there is a possibility that he'll limit it, so Rav Scheinberg said it's permissible. But the fact that and he did it, he was the broadcaster for Kol Yisrael. Rav Scheinberg said it's permissible, but he asked the shaila, because if Rav Scheinberg would have said it's usher, then it would have been usher. So you may have a talent and you can't use it. Let's say you've got an incredible talent for cooking. You go to chef school. What's it called? Culinary school. And you'd like to go be a cook in a fancy hotel, but it's not kosher. You can't. Well, you're going to have to restrain that talent. However, if you have a talent to use in Hashem's serving Hashem, that's a talent that obviously HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave a person should use it. When and what circumstances, at what point in life to embark on that, that's a different question. That's a different question. So, for example, let's say you have fundraising abilities. Notice how we immediately go there. Let's say you have ability to fundraise. So you can fundraise for a yeshiva. You have fundraise for a charity organization. Let's say you're good with you're good with your hands. You could become or you're good under stress. So you could be a Hatzalah guy. To use your talents and ability to Hatzalah. Let's say your organizational skills, teaching skills, whatever the ability, a voice. A man who's got a good voice should be a chazan. A man should be a voice. And the Torah says, there's a pasuk that says, Kabed es Hashem mehonecha. Honor Hashem from your treasure. And the Gemara says, and the Medrash says, mehonecha, read it as gronecha, from your throat. If you've got a good voice, be a chazan. Chazan, by the way, doesn't mean put on an opera. Chazan means be the guy who inspires other people to daven better by you leading the prayers. So if you have the ability, so that Moshe is saying, Re'u kara Hashem b'shem B'tzalel. Look, Hashem has designated B'tzalel. That means if you've got an ability, use that ability. Again, it's a question of when to use the ability. So for example, a guy who's learning in Kollel, and eventually he's going to be the rabbi of a community. When is the right time to leave his independent growth and then take over and give over to the community? Okay, that needs guidance. But if you ask your Rabbi, you ask a Rav, you ask Das Torah. You ask somebody who you ask your local Rav. You ask somebody who gives you guidance in other areas of life. And you get Torah guidance to know when the time is right. But a person was given an ability, and God gave him the ability to not use the ability. It's like it's a slap in the face. What do you give me the ability for? I'm giving the ability just to waste it. So again, it needs, like everything else in Torah life, all these undefined areas need a certain amount of Torah, need a certain amount of guidance, like anything else. But it's there to be used. Somebody had a question.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll ask.
Oh, you got to okay. Take a look at Pasuk Lamed Beis. This is very important, gentlemen. There's 2 lines from the top. Vayamale Yoso, there's still a description of Betzalel. Vayamale Yoso Ruach Elokim b'chochmo v'tvuna v'das. God filled him, he's filled with the Spirit of God, with wisdom, understanding, knowledge, v'chol melacha. V'lachashav, now pay attention carefully, 3 lines from the top. V'lachashav machshavos, to think thoughts. Lasos, to do, bazav v'kesef v'choshes. Now we spoke last time about lachashav machshavos means that Betzalel had the ability, remember we spoke about this last week, he had the ability to understand the thoughts and the intent of the people who donated the materials. Lachashav, to think, machshavos, thoughts. I can think your thoughts. What we'd call in English a mind reader or a wife, whichever. It's the same. It's synonymous. The lachashav machshavos, that people would donate it, and Betzalel, I mean, can you imagine this ability? He had the ability to zoom in and understand what level of devotion you had when you were donating this. Were you donating l'shem shamayim? Did you have 20% is for your own honor, prestige by giving it? And he had that ability. That we mentioned last time. Lachshov, to think, machshavos, other people's thoughts. He could actually read other people's minds, whatever that means. Okay. But one of the Farshim says, look at how the pasuk is structured. The lachshov machshavos, to think thoughts, lasos, to do, bazav v'kezv v'nachoshes, which means, if you ever get an idea to do a mitzvah, do it. If you ever have an idea about something that good, do it. So for example, I'm going to give a couple examples. If you're thinking about, hey, you know what, I ought to put away the Siddurim in the shul. The shul's all messy. I ought to put away the Siddurim. Get up and put away the Siddurim. Put them on the shelf. You think, oh, somebody ought to do it. You're also a somebody. Somebody ought to. If you ever think of a shidduch, hey, you know what? I might have an idea for this guy for a shidduch. Make a phone call. Make a phone. That's all it takes is a phone call. And if you don't feel that you're capable, so go over to somebody who you feel is capable and tell them what your idea is. But don't just sit on it. Don't just sit on the idea. You have an idea to do something good, get up and do it. Obviously, sometimes the things that we think are good are not so good. Think about it a little bit. But if you really know that it's a good idea, so get up and do it. What do you call it? Probably the most common area. If you're thinking something good about somebody, say it to them. We have a policy in our house. If you're thinking something good, say it. Most people have the opposite policy. That they don't say. When thinking something negative, that people say. I don't say we're perfect, by the way. But if you're thinking something good about somebody, yeah, you can walk into your kid's room and your kid's room is organized. Say to the kid, hey, I noticed you organized your room nicely. I've never met, other than Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, I don't know anybody who does not appreciate positive feedback. Never met anybody who doesn't appreciate positive feedback. Everybody wants to hear something good. You don't have to be a slobberer. But if, somebody, you saw somebody asked a good question in Shir. Say, hey, by the way, there was a good question you asked. Just mention it. What's the problem? Men aren't so good at this. Women are always doing that. Oh, you look so lovely. No, men. I don't know anybody, guys in Yeshiva walk around. Boy, you look really good today, Jeremy. Guys are, there's a limit. But I could tell you asked a good question in Shir. My favorite is that people call up. Women talk to and about each other. So, lady calls you and said, "Hello, Rabbi Kaplan, is your lovely wife home?" I said, "No, but my regular wife is here." And there's silence on the other end of the phone. Yeah. I mean, just last night I got a phone call. This lady, a neighbor from across, she goes, "Hello, is the missus home?" So I go, "No, she's Mrs. I'm the hit. She's the Mrs. If you're thinking it, you're thinking something good about somebody, say it. Why keep it in? What are you afraid of? What do you think is going to happen? That's the Torah, and that's why it says he thought lachshov. He thought belasos, and he did, and that's the lesson for us. You think, do. Okay. Yeah.
I don't know about
Go ahead.
I'm not sure about the Hebrew, but in English it mentions he had knowledge of every craft and explains the craft, and then it says to perform every craft design. Why does it need to explain both or explain?
I don't know which pasuk you're on.
Oh, that's where we were, 31, 32.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why does it
What's the question?
need to say to perform every craft of design if it also just lists out the crafts? Why couldn't it just say why does it need to? I guess why does it need to list out the crafts if it just says to perform every craft of design?
Still not following the question.
It seems redundant to say to weave designs to work with gold, silver, copper, stone cutting for setting, and wood carving to perform every craft of design. Why not just say for every craft of design?
Oh, why did it mention individual? Why the gold, the silver?
Yeah.
Possibly to show you how broad this was. Look how many things he's involved with, and how many different skills. How you work with gold is different than silver, and how you carve stones, and all these. Sometimes to just say it briefly it's not as impressive. My wife made Shabbos. My wife prepared the Shabbos. And she prepared the fish, and she prepared the kugel, and she prepared the cholent, she prepared the entire Shabbos. When you start listing things individually, it's much more impressive. Much more impressive that way.
It also could be to differentiate that while Bezalel has this incredible role, every person in Klal Yisrael has their own role as well. He's focused on the crafts of design, but you all are still going to have a role to play in terms of getting the materials and everything else that's needed for the mission.
Could be. But this is speaking specifically about Bezalel, though.
Well, just on the face of that, just to do stonework can take years, especially.
Yeah, all these things. Where did he learn this? All these skills. He gets so many
It
skills.
also says every craft twice, at least.
Okay, all these things are their emphasis. Their emphasis. You need to see the Mefarshim to see what specifically from each. Right. Once you get to those questions, there are two types of questions. There are conceptual questions in Chumash, and there are the precision questions on the wording. And I've learned from experience, conceptual questions you'll generally find pretty easy, and the Mefarshim will cover it. When you get to the precision, you got to get lucky, because sometimes the Mefarshim will talk about why something's repeated or something subtle, some subtle change, why the terminology is like this, like that. And that you have to get lucky. And I've seen that myself, where I've had questions and I don't find an answer for it. Once in a while, you get lucky and you see, you open up one of the one of the Mefarshim, and he actually does talk about it. That I don't have a specific answer for you here. Okay, now take a look and tell me if you see a problem here. Skip down after the people started bringing all the stuff, and then in an incredible miracle, probably the biggest miracle that we're going to see in the entire Torah. And it's Pasuk Hey, which is about a little past the 50-yard line.
Can I say something on the previous?
Yeah.
What it's all? When a lot of where I worked, we do a lot of reconstructive design. So we were redoing the roof, the pitch of a church, and the amount of craftsmen that we had on the project was a lot, because everybody specialized in something.
It's a certain different job, right?
And to do something like a bunch of things.
Yeah, that's why. Right. That's right. That's why. That's the miracle in considering he's 13 years old. Okay, take a look at Pasuk Hey. It's about. Do you see where it is? Vayomru el Moshe lemar. Marbi ma'am lehavi. The people are bringing too much. Midei ha'avoda la'malocha asher tiva Hashem lasos osa. The craftsmen come along and they say, hey, the people are donating too much. Imagine this problem in a shul. And Rabbi, hey, no, not so many donations, guys. Vayetzav Moshe vayaviru kol b'machaneh, where Moshe sends out an announcement. Ish ve'isha al yasu od malacha l'truma zakosh. No more bringing. Vayikolei ha'am le'avi. People stop bringing. They were so eager to donate for the Mishkan, they had to be told to stop. And then, in the next pasuk Zayin, ve'amelacha, now pay attention carefully, ve'amelacha haisa dayam, the melacha meaning the materials they brought was sufficient. L'chol ha'melacha lasos osa, to do all that needed to be done, v'hoser, and extra. Any problem in that pasuk?
What was the extras?
What's that? Okay. In the wording of the pasuk, do you have a problem? V'hamalacha ha'sadayim. How's the article translated? Where's the article's precise?
If it's enough,
The work had been enough, and there was extra.
it's like when you're putting together a piece of furniture from IKEA and there's one screw left over.
Okay.
And it's like, what did you miss something?
Okay, okay.
If there's enough to construct the whole thing, how is there extra?
Extra, right. In other words, make up your mind. There was enough or there was extra. Dayam means, it's like the word die. Die means enough. Dayam means there was the right amount. The hoser means there was extra. Yeah, like you end up with that screw from IKEA. Yeah, that's always a problem. By me, it was taking apart a lamp and putting it back together and ending up with an extra bolt. You know, which I guess we don't need that. Then I plug in the lamp and knock out the entire power supply of Yerushalayim. But yeah, that was part of the problem. Okay, so here it says it was enough, and it was extra. So there are several different approaches here among the Mefarshim. Noah, what do you say?
I was going to say that, I mean, it said before that the children of Israel were giving so much that Moshe had to say to stop. And then it says in the next passage that they did enough plus extra. I think it's kind of self-explanatory at that point.
That what?
What's self-explanatory?
Yeah, if it's so we're all waiting with.
So it seems like it's kind of self-explanatory because everybody brought enough and some people came and gave extra. It seems like maybe by their own free will or by whatever.
Okay, so you're okay. So you're on the right track. You see, the Mefarshim go in different directions with this. Some say that there are people who couldn't afford a lot, so they gave what they could afford, the little bit. The little bit they gave became even more, meaning not that there was an extra bolt.
Miraculous?
Meaning, we're talking about the Mishkan. There are a lot of miracles going on here. You know, if you're while you're chewing on your mun, you could think about this. Yeah. We're talking about a miraculous. The whole thing here is a miracle. Again, like Yermi said, a 13-year-old who's doing all this stuff, that itself is a miracle. So you call it a miracle, call it divinely inspired. That Dayam v'hoser is referring to the individuals. I'd like to donate more. This is all I got, and then it becomes more. That's one approach. The other approach is there was enough to build the Mishkan, but there was a little left over. What's the benefit of that? The benefit of that is no individual could then get a little bit full of himself and say, if not for me, we wouldn't have been able to build the Mishkan. This is what everybody brought, but there's some extra. So nobody could say, boy, I was indispensable. I was indispensable. If not for me, it wouldn't have gotten done. Number two. Number three is the what was it? The only way to know that you had enough is because there was extra. And what does that mean? So I'll give you a classic example, because I've lived this. You know, we have my wife puts out some food Friday night. You have a bunch of guests in the house, and she serves, and let's say one of the dishes is finished. The kugel is finished, and after an entire feast, what's she thinking about? One thing. Boy, there wasn't enough kugel. And she's Jewish. There wasn't enough kugel, right? How does a Jewish woman, when does she feel it was enough? If there's something left over. If it wasn't left over, I must not have been enough, right? No matter what you tell her, listen, each guy ate 4 pieces of kugel. They had, don't worry. It was, it was so good they knocked it off. I probably should have made more. Yeah, no matter, they don't even hear a word you're saying. Yeah, I probably should have made more. How do you know there was enough? The sign that there was enough is that there's something left over. Let's say there was nothing left over, so then they might think, well, okay, we built the Mishkan with whatever we had, but who said maybe we could have used a little bit more? So the sign they actually brought enough is there's stuff was left over. That's how some of us should learn it. And the what else? There was one other idea here. Yeah. Okay. One more point. One more pasuk. Vayasu kol chacham lev be'osei habalacha. Next pasuk. Do you see anything wrong with that structure, gentlemen? Vayasu kol chacham lev. Is there anything wrong with that structure? Vayasu is plural. Chacham is singular. So it should really say Vayasu kol chachmei lev be'osei habalacha. You see where I'm reading? Es hamishkan. Why does it say it starts in the plural, then it goes to the singular? Vayasu kol chacham lev. It should be Vayasu kol chachmei lev. Why did it jump from the plural to the singular? The answer is that when you got a lot of people involved in something, it often looks like a lot of people were involved in it. You get a bunch of people on a project, some things doesn't turn out exactly the way it should have turned out. Here, you're asking about a miracle. Yet a lot of people involved, yet it came out as if there was one wise person doing it. That it all came out perfectly, it fit perfectly, everything worked perfectly. So the Torah is emphasized because sometimes too many cooks, it doesn't come out. Here, with all the people involved, yet the project ended up the way it was supposed to. Unlike the Jerusalem light rail, where you had many people involved. And do you know when they first put up the Jerusalem light rail, do you know where Mount Herzl is, Har Herzl? Do you know that the rail that was laid on Mount Herzl had been put down and pulled up 3 times? The track was put down.
Because it was not done.
The first time they put it down, it was because something wasn't parallel. So they ripped it up, put it down again. Then they realized they forgot to insert under the ground. There was certain 3 times they pulled it up. That's what happens when you get a lot of people involved. So in any project where you have a lot of people involved, you're always going to run into but why did you do that? I was thinking, or Rabbi Salinger told me about a building. Rabbi Salinger told me I think there was a building somewhere in Spain. Was it in Spain or Italy? They built this 42-story building and then realized that they only built an elevator shaft that went to about the 14th floor. So from the 14th floor to the 42nd floor, they did not have any space for elevators. They had to bring in an American company to figure out how we're getting. Why? Because you were in charge of that. He was in charge of that, and then nobody knew what anybody else was doing. And here the miracle is everybody's involved, and it comes out chacham. It comes out as if one person did it. All right.